And it was on this day, November 26th, 2024, that I finished The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey, also known as the authors of The Expanse. Um, Going into the actual introduction, since I want to put a little snippet here, I have been insanely busy. I came into the school year thinking it was going to be busy, and I underestimated how busy it was going to be. I have been a new level of busy, which is kind of strange because I have less classes, but it's still a lot. It's a lot to take in. And so because everything's been so heavy, I haven't been reading. Mostly not because I haven't been in the mood to read, because I've been in the mood to read for a while now, but it's because I know as soon as I started reading, I would use reading to distract myself from school, which I came close a few times to Rhythm of War, because I really wanted to start it, but I knew if I started it, I wasn't going to study for my exam instead. So I kept putting off reading, and it was only this week, which is Thanksgiving break, that I was like, oh, I'm allowed to read now. So that's mostly the problem I've been facing, is that I keep just having to look towards the next thing in school, and so I don't allow myself time to read. Um, so the goal is to read multiple books over break. We've already read one. I started this on Saturday, which was the 23rd, and I finished it today, the 26th. So that's a pretty good pace. I actually meant to finish it the day after. I meant to finish it in 2 days, a night and a day. But I put it off because I actually hung out with a friend instead. But that's how things have been. I hope to keep reading more. I'm going to try to read a lot over winter break as well. So I am looking forward to reading, and I really do love reading. I love it so much. The amount of people that I've like lore dropped my reading addiction to recently has been a lot. Um, so I hope to read more. No promises on reading more because school is still school. Next semester will still be busy, also in a very weird way because I'll also have less classes, even easier classes than this semester. But at the same time, I'll be dealing with job search and master's grad application search and stuff like that, which has not been going well. So that is the other source of my recent stress is university and career search. It's been a little difficult. So again, just keep all that in mind. Not that many people are like expecting my updates, but that is the reason for the delay. Getting into the book, which is what this video is actually about. It is a 15-hour audiobook, and I did the audiobook just because I don't have the money or time to go to the bookstore. So I went ahead and snatched the audiobook, and I just wanted like a quick read that I could get back into reading with. And I saw it this birthday. This book came out on my birthday this year, and so I was like, might as well read it. I know I love the authors. It's the same narrator as The Expanse, and I know I listened to some of these Expanse audiobooks, and so I knew I liked the narrator. And it came on my birthday, so it just felt it's something I should read. And it is really good. I wouldn't say it's like in the top tier with the best books I've read. This is supposed to symbolize Sanderson, not the book. It's not like in the top tier of books I've read, but I still very much enjoyed it. So we'll get into non-spoilers with that. The main takeaways I have from this book are one, that it is very layered. The layers this book operates at is very interesting. I don't want to necessarily say unique, but it is mostly unique. And I very much appreciate how many layers are ongoing at the same time in this series. It's going to be a series. This is the first book of what people are saying will be a trilogy. So, but I really appreciate the layers. I think the second thing is I still love the science realism that the authors have. In The Expanse, they were great at having a lot of like accurate scientific literature and like terminology and an understanding of how physics and things work. In this book, they do that, but in a biochemistry/biology level, and I have mad respect for that. My roommate, which I'm not going to disclose too much about them, but my roommate is a biochem/other biology major, and throughout the novel, I was hearing things that they talk about at their work, and so I was like, oh my god, this is like actual, this is actual science, and I am actually recommending it to them so they can like give me feedback on how accurate the science is. My feeling, especially like some of the things they mention, is that there's a lot of basic principles that they are definitely following, and I think they do have some specific things. It always comes back to the crustacean. That's like a classic idea in biology, and that comes up a few times in the book. So the fact that I'm able to recognize it as someone who's not taking chemistry or biology is really interesting. So that's another thing I love about James S. A. Corey in both their series. I don't think I'll grow tired of it. I just love some good science in my science fiction. Another very interesting thing, or a very notable thing for this book for me, is that it's like 50-50 on can I predict the plot. Maybe more like 60-40. 60% of the time, I have no idea where the plot is going. I have no idea like what is coming next. And I have like mad respect for those sections. And then another 40% of the book, I think I can predict it. Whether or not I'm right is a different story, but most of the time I'm like, oh, this is where this is going. When you can predict what will happen, they're really good at doing one of two things. They will either make another bad thing happen while the thing you predicted happened, or they will leverage dramatic irony where the other characters don't know that the thing you know is happening. So I would say like overall how they handled like all the surprise and everything was really good. I think there's one towards the end where I was like, that's a little obvious, but I think it also was like trying to wrap up the story, so I do understand it as well. That's like one of my few little complaints. Um, Not sure of character safety. Oh, they do the same thing they do in The Expanse, where you're not entirely sure of the safety of the characters, and that's really, I really enjoy that in novels, where you really don't know if the characters are in fact safe. Sometimes in fantasy you have a good idea that like, oh, this character's gonna make it. I feel every time I'm reading a book by James S. A. Corey, sometimes I have no clue. Sometimes I'm like, they might just entirely wipe this plot line and move on to one of the other characters because they have so many layers to the characters. And so there's still that uncertainty in here. Maybe not as extreme at times as The Expanse, but definitely some. Well, maybe it is more at other times. Sometimes it's more than Expanse, sometimes it's less. I'm gonna stop comparing the series to The Expanse. It's a baseline if you know that series. But we're gonna stop doing that comparison. One of the other unique things that this book covers or like includes is future tense, which is very interesting. It's not like time travel or anything like that. It's just written. You can tell that the book is written with the characters looking back at the events. And in the beginning of the book, the very first chapter, they tell you a lot of things about like the future, like from the future looking back at that moment. And so you're revealed a lot of things very early on. And it's interesting how little you know, even with them telling you that XYZ is going to happen. And so that was something I've also really appreciated about this book. And I'm kind of curious how it's going to continue going forward, because there's only two characters really that used that. And so I'm curious what that signifies and like the implications of it. So that was one of the things that like got me attached in the beginning, was the realistic science, how relatable the story is, which is another point I could talk about, and the future tense. Those were all very interesting to me. The relatability, both my roommate and I have been trying to do lab work or have done lab work, and so there's a lot of lab work in this book. So again, it gets to the science realism, but not just like the realism of the science, but the realism of scientists. The amount of character reflection I saw from the main characters that were all scientists, yeah, it reflected some people that both of us know in our real lives. And so that's why that was also another reason I loved this book, is I was like, this is feeling very accurate to any working laboratory. You have this array of characters with this array of responses and priorities, and I just loved a lot of the themes of how the characters do lab work. because I'm like, this is kind of realistic. And there's a lot of quotes the characters say where I'm like, oh my god, that really applies to my life. Um, one of the main characters is an intern, and so there's a lot of themes on being an intern. So a lot of those things were relatable to our lives as well, which is another reason why I love this book. So that's most of the big things. In general, it just also has a very fascinating way of world building, very interesting world to build, or series of worlds to build. And so that is another thing. I can't comment too much on that because I haven't read the most science fiction overall, but I would say that the way they did their world building, because it's so biology, chemistry based, it gives a new perspective on looking at science or sci-fi worlds. So I think it's very interesting, and I, especially at the beginning of the book, got hooked on their description of the world that they were on. So those are all the things I have for non-spoilers. We'll dive into spoilers. I don't have too much for spoilers this time because I was trying to make a quick list, but this is your time to leave. If you don't want spoilers, I'm going to sip some water because it's practically tradition at this point, and hydration is good for you. Getting to spoilers. The first thing I want to say is that my favorite character is Daffod. Period. Nothing else to add. And it may be because I'm an intern and he's the intern role, but I love Daffod. He maybe makes some choice decisions. I think all the characters make some choice decisions throughout the novel, but I really like Daffod. There's some relatability to Daffod, especially the way he approaches problems. It was easy to tell, in my opinion, early on that he was going to be the main character. At times I wasn't sure, but big picture I could tell. There were times where I was like, it's possible that like humanity just ends right here and then no more Daffod. Or that someone else would take charge over Daffod or something would happen that would put Daffod back in a lower role, which kind of reminds me of, I was kind of approaching it as a Stormlight Archive point of view, but that's a side story. But I did still like Daffod throughout, even throughout his choices, just because I just have a draw to him. Maybe, again, might be the personal relation, but also might be just the character and how he's portrayed. He is one of the characters that talks about everything in the future tense. So I think part of it, it's not necessarily the future tense, but like looking back, and part of it is using his looking back on everything. And I will say the reveal at the end that he is now the lead is crazy. I was not expecting that much of him. I was expecting like some like particular role that's like minor, but like they just made him the spokesman for thousands of humans, which is a power role, a very powerful role, and that's gonna have some repercussions for sure. Any role with that much power, especially a younger person with that much power, is gonna be a plot, one hell of a plot. So I am expecting that in the next book, 100%. And the characters lightly touch on it at the end. One of my other favorite characters is the Swarm. They grew on me very quick. As soon as the Swarm was introduced, I was like, this is crazy. Like, they're there and they're spectating, and I wonder where this is going. And then we find out the first reveal that the Swarm infected Elle. I was so excited by that. That was like very, very exciting. And so I just started like freaking out every time there was an Elle scene. And then there's the reveal of like Elle and Daffod's affair, and I was like, oh my god, he doesn't even realize. And then he realized, kind of didn't change his mind, which was very interesting. And then changed his choices based on her. And then she infected. Oh, I always mix up the brother and sister, because both of their names start with the J or start with the J sound. It's like, it's either Jetson or the other one. Infected the brother. I say infected, but like killed. Practically killed and absorbed the brother. And so that was the thing I predicted at the end of the book. As soon as I realized Elle was dead, I was like, oh my god, that's what happened. And I don't think they were trying to hide that too much, because they showed the changing character very quickly. But I am intrigued to know, dramatic irony for the next book, will Daphne find out that that happened? Does Daphne think the spy is dead, or does Daphne realize that it's now in the brother? I don't know. But I'm very intrigued to know. But that was one of my other favorite aspects of the book was the swarm and all the characters it went through. Seeing the L in the background of the swarm having particular opinions and like stress and stuff like that. And seeing the swarm being transformed by humanity. I think that in and of itself is its own theme. And I really love that. Also, I didn't write this point down. This is a pretty big one. This book's themes are really good. A lot of its quotes on humanity are like they're like good. I remember several times I streamed while I was reading the majority of the book. Several times I was like, "Oh my god, that's a really good quote," and then I'd read it out loud to the stream because there's just a lot of really good ones in there. Themes on humanity, themes on pretty much colonialism to some degree. That is kind of what the book's about. Kind of not, but kind of is. And like slavery and like these other concepts. Not in like the most harsh way it could be done, but in a very interesting, as science fiction does, new perspective of approaching it. And so I really love that. Very much love. Let's see. I also love Kampar. He was one of my favorite characters. I am going to be slightly biased because he was gay or bi or something. Who knows? But he was one of the humorous characters. And the way that he was humorous in these really dark times throughout the book really balanced it without like me like really noticing it until I started reflecting on Kampar. And I was like, he really is bringing a lot of the relief. And in a weird way of like the relief stressing out the characters but being enjoyable to the reader. It was a very interesting balance. And so overall I just enjoyed Kampar and all the scenes he was there. I wasn't the biggest fan of Tonner, and so Kampar's commentary on Tonner is another reason why I liked him. Tonner, especially towards the end of the book, yeah, I just didn't like him. That's just a personal opinion. I think it is just a character trait of his to be petty when he's stressed, and that is like an actual thing people do. I am 100% aware of that. I just am a logical working person, and so every time he was being petty to an extreme degree, I was like, okay, buddy, calm down there. Maybe now is not the time. Especially the ending where he like pretty much almost got himself and maybe a lot of humanity killed. And Daphne, the young one, was the one who had to step in and be like, hey, maybe let's not do that. So, especially towards the end, Tonner lost a lot of my grace. But even towards the beginning, the way he treated his work group reminds me of a certain potential person I know in real life, and I think that is also why there's certain people who work in laboratories that have that attitude that he has. Very harsh attitude, very an attitude driven by I need to be the one to publish the research and I don't want to work with others. That's not necessarily what he does. He says it needs to be my group, but the way he's like, I need recognition for my research, reminded me of some real life people, and I was like, oh wow. So I had some personal bias against Tonner. Again, I don't think he's supposed to be the most likable character, but there was a point with Tonner and with freaking, it's like Autumn something. Oh my god. How am I already losing all the characters' names when I was just listening to it earlier today? The guy who led the Human Rebellion. I don't know why I can't remember his name. Something about those two characters, and also the sister. Again, can't remember her name. It's either Jetson or the other one. Those three characters, there's a point where I was listening to their point of views for like a section, and it occurred to me that this series, or this book, kind of resembles Lord of the Flies. And I kept thinking about it more and more, and I was like, the ideas are there. The things that implied Lord of the Flies, where you see human nature when put under a microscope under high stress over time. You're seeing how people develop. You're seeing how children and adults develop under the stress, and you see how they start turning on each other and the situation at the same time. And it comes to leaders. People with the conch, get certain things, certain privileges, and start taking away power from those more centralized on like keeping people in line or keeping people from not violence. And so I started noticing those parallels, and I was like, oh, that's when I started getting really stressed. Not like actually stressed, but like stressed about the characters, because I realized that that was what was happening. And again, repeatedly, the themes on humanity and how humanity behaves and what humanity does were recurring. And so I knew, like, oh, something's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. So again, during my stream, I kept repeatedly saying, this is going to go bad. This is going to be really bad. And I started, like, getting antsy. So that's another thing I loved about the story, is the fact that they did that. And maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but I started noticing that parallel. And that kind of added to the stress for the characters, because historically, humans don't do great in this situation. It's just how we do. One of the particular things I wrote down was humans making guns. That reveal that they made a gun, I immediately was like, shocking. Who would have predicted humans making guns? Mind blown. So, again, the way that I had that response, and I was just like, this is just representation of humanity. Another thing that I loved about The Expanse, I felt The Expanse was very accurate to how humans would react in those situations. So, big fan. Big fan, big fan. Going back to other aspects of the book, since we just talked about a lot, one of the reveals that I really liked was the bomb reveal. I wasn't expecting that. I just thought she was going to get there. I misinterpreted what she was doing at first until after it happened. I thought that she was going to make her medication, which would solve the problem of the project too, which I misunderstood. She was just making a medication for herself. I realized that afterward, after the disaster, but it means it caught the disaster. It caught me even more off guard with the disaster, because I thought she was walking towards a solution for some reason. And then suddenly a bomb blew up. I thought it was going to be another thing. No, it was their laboratory. It was the monkeys. And then you see the humans ganging up on the monkeys. Again, human themes, violence. Oh, a lot of commentary on suicide as well. A character with anxiety and depression, which is awesome. I'm going to claim as a reader that David reminds me of autism/ADHD. So I appreciated that. Again, I don't know if people agree, but I saw that reflected. And as someone with many friends with that, and most likely myself, very likely myself, it is hereditary, that was very interesting to see. So that's another reason why I very much appreciated Daffod. But that reveal caught me off guard, and it was very interesting to see how all the characters responded to it, and then all the repercussions that played out from that. Pretty much the rest of the story all stemmed from that event. And that's how you kind of learned about the librarians the most. And I think the librarians are the aliens I'm most intrigued by, other than the Swarm. Every interaction with the librarian, just like Daffod, I was trying to piece together, like, what could all these implications be? And I was, like, thinking out loud of, like, trying to solve the puzzle that Daffod's solving. So I really like following Daffod as the main character, because he's trying to piece these puzzle pieces together. And I just enjoy that in books. That's most everything I wrote here. The last thing I wrote that I haven't addressed is future tense. Again, the very beginning of the story, he flat out says, this was when it started. This is when things started going bad. And what's the thing that we don't know is at what point is he referring to in the future? We don't know if he's talking about, like, after he found out that L was the Swarm, if he's looking back and realizing him liking L was the problem, or if he's writing this post book 3. Because I'm pretty sure, I would have to re-listen, but I'm pretty sure in chapter 1, he said, like, end of the universe. Not end of his world, but, like, end of everything. And so if that is the case, he's writing from a much further future than we are in. So it's very interesting to like look through this book in that looking back perspective. And just like in The Expanse, James S. A. Corey were not afraid to put you in the point of view of a character that died. And so there's a few times that happened as well, where you're like, oh, this character like knows their impending doom and talks about like their past choices. And then there's another one where Daffod says like the door closed on his aunt. He never saw her again. So that was like an indicator of something bad's about to happen. And you knew something bad was going to happen because Daffod already said like things are going to go wrong. But you still weren't prepared for the way it went wrong. And I still, the whole time, thought that the aliens were going to come to the book. Not the whole time, but the beginning of the book. I thought the aliens were going to come to the world, inhabit the world. I didn't think the aliens were going to put them all on their ship, ship them back to their home, and have all the other aliens there too. So I think that was very interesting. I didn't go how I was expecting it to go. So, very interesting book. Very much enjoyed it. I am looking forward to books 2 and 3. A trilogy. I probably would buy the books if it is just a trilogy. We'll see. But very much a good read. Glad I stopped and took the time to read it this week. Yay. With that, we finally get into what's new and what's next, which is a great question. A very complicated question. Overall, I am going to read Edge Dancer. That is for sure. I'm going to read Edge Dancer. I was supposed to read Edge Dancer before I read Oathbringer. I skipped it because I just really want to start Oathbringer and make some progress. I have decided from many people insisting, many being 3 people insisting, that I'm going to read Edge Dancer. It is a little big, actually. A little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. If I can find the page. It's like this big. Of this book. This is all Edge Dancer. But I think it's like 6 hours audiobook, so I should be able to read it. And there's pictures and a lot of chapter markers, so it's actually not as long. So I'm going to read Edge Dancer because this actually gives some context into something from Oathbringer that I think I did comment on in the video. So I think I'm going to talk about that. I'm trying to read Dawn Shard. I don't own Dawn Shard is the problem. And so I'm debating if it's worth buying Dawn Shard right now. I don't actually know how much Dawn Shard costs. Hold on. I can't spell Dawn for some reason. My brain is a little low power, I'm going to be honest. I think it's cheap. The hardcover's $6. The ebook's the same. The ebook's the same price as the hardcover. The paperback's more expensive. Very interesting. Also, it looks like you can pre-purchase Wind and Truth. So that gets into what's next. I'm trying to read Dawn Shard so I can start Rhythm of War. I do have the Rhythm of War audiobook going. I also have the physical book here. So that's why I want to start getting on it. It is 57 hours audiobook. So, it is chunky. It is big. That's why I want to start it over break here. And because Wind and Truth officially comes out next week, which is the 5th book, I am concerned, more than a little, that I won't have access to the book for a while. Because I'm going to be fighting for it on Libby when it comes out, it's really 50-50 on whether or not I'll be like in the first few weeks or if I'll be like literally half a year down the line. So we'll see. I'm not willing to buy it because I'm not willing to buy the physical copy because if I buy the physical copy, it will not match all the books I have. I will just wait for 1 to 2 years to get it. So that means I either have to get the ebook or the audiobook. I could buy the audiobook myself. I think it's going to be like $40. It might be even more than that. It's a very long audiobook, so it makes sense for them to charge more. It doesn't tell me. It just says get a membership. I might just pay for an Audible membership for 1 month just to get Wind and Truth. But it's going to be very interesting. The cover looks very beautiful, but also concerning. It looks like there's a big storm in the front and center. So We will most definitely see. I also think it's Dalinar on the cover because he has the book. He has a book with him, which is very, very exciting. Oh my god. I really need to read. I need to read Rhythm of War. I think this is Shallan. I'm not entirely sure who it is. My theory is that it's Shallan, but we'll see. So those are the plans for Brandon Sanderson. About not Brandon Sanderson. I really need to finish Witch King. I'm gonna look to see if it will be available soon. But I started that book over the summer and I didn't finish it. And it's starting to really bother me that I started so many books and didn't finish them. So I am debating doing that. Won't let me do that yet. Let me see if it's available right now. Speed run. No, it is not. Place hold. Available soon. So I might try to also finish that this week while I'm waiting for Dawnshard. I did make it a bit in. I made it like 3 to 4 hours in, I think, during work. Maybe even further than that. So I just want to get that book out of the way. That is by Martha Wells, who wrote Murderbot, a very famous sci-fi series. This is one of her fantasy books. And so I figured I would try this out and see how I feel about her prose. Because I've been recommending Murderbot a lot. So I wanted to feel that out. Previously, I was going to start Farseer. I don't think I will yet. I think I was smart when I originally said to finish Sanderson before I start Farseer. I think I'm going to continue doing that. And after I finish Sanderson, in terms of Stormlight Archive, I am going to read his... Oh, they're hidden right now. His secret novels that are down here. So I do plan to read those as well. Since I spent so much money on them, I should definitely read them. I could technically start one right now. I could also start Elantris. That's also on the list. There's really a lot of books I'm considering when you put it all the pieces together. But for the most part, it's going to be Sanderson, not Farseer, Witch King by Martha Wells. I'm also debating reading Dracula. I have read Dracula before, but I was really young. And I, upon reflection, realized I've forgotten most of that book. So I've decided that I think it counts if I reread a book that I don't remember well in my book count. So I'm thinking about doing Dracula because I feel I should read it as an adult and reflect on it as an adult. I remember most of Brave New World, so like I wouldn't do the same with Brave New World. I remember a decent amount of Catch-22. I still might consider rereading Catch-22 because I could definitely remember more. But like a lot of the classic novels I've read, I remember pretty well. Dracula, I just don't. I wish I could explain why I don't remember it well. I remember liking it, but I was like 13 when I got it. So I've been thinking about rereading Dracula as well. I think that would be a shorter read. And I have a pretty good copy here. It's very nice. It's the Barnes & Noble edition with the foam covers. Actually, I really like foam covers, which is strange, but I do. But it looks good. It's got the black pages. So I've been thinking about rereading Dracula. Probably because I've been seeing the Dracula musical posts online. And it looks fantastic. It looks very funny. So it's been on my mind. So I'm just tossing that out there as a potential book you may see me review later. I also just haven't read a novel in quite a while. So putting that out there as well. There's a lot of things going on in terms of reading. We'll see what I read. I can't give much more insight. I also don't think I've bought any new books as far as I can recall. I lied. I do have new books. 1 second. I totally forgot that I got new books. I realized it's been 3 months. It's been a while. So, in terms of new books, one, my roommate, thank you for buying me this, bought me House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I've been wanting to read T.J. Klune for a while. People have been recommending me T.J. Klune a lot. So I am listening. I have it now. This is a hardcover with the blue pages, which is really nice. And again, really kind of my roommate to spend $30 on a book for me. Thank you. Thank you much. So I feel I should also read this for the sake of my roommate. And as far as I know, it's a standalone. as far as I know. TJ Klune has some standalone, some series, so I need to do my own research on which ones are which. So, but this is a really nice book, and I should probably read it as well. What's the font size like? Oh, it's large font? We'll be fine. Hopefully. So I might read this. And then I got 2 books on sale, which is kind of impressive. These books are kind of expensive. But I got the first 2 books of The 3-Body Problem on sale because, again, science fiction, everyone's been telling me to read 3-Body Problem, and I've been wanting to read 3-Body Problem. People, again, tell me that the translations of the later books, it gets more iffy. People enjoy it less because the translation changes, which makes sense to me. But everyone talks about the first book being fantastic. So I went ahead and got the first 2. I'll probably will get the third, just for the sake of matching the trilogy. But for now, I got these 2 on sale together. And they're usually would have been like, $30+. But I think I got them for like half or something like that. So it was a good deal. And they took the sticker off for me, so I can't even see what I got it on sale for. So nice of them to take the sticker off the book. It does still have the thing, but that's okay. So these are the books I got. You might see The House in the Cerulean Sea soon, maybe. Maybe. Add that to the list. Alright. That is now all I have. Sorry to shake the camera. That's all I have. I will see you all whenever I finish a book. I don't have any deadline or timing. School will continue next week. I do have 2 weeks of school left this semester, which is crazy. That's only really 2 weeks. It's kind of 2.5 weeks technically. My final is on the 18th. But in terms of like actual classes, only 2 weeks of classes left. So I will be busy for the next 2 weeks, that's for sure. But hopefully winter break I'll have something read. Don't know when. We'll see. But if I want to finish my reading goal, I have to read 8 books the next month. So don't know. We will see. We'll try our best. That's all I got. I hope you all have a good one, and I hope that things aren't too stressful for y'all, because I know things are stressful for me. So again, I hope you have a good one, not just now, but in the future, and that life is kind of forgiving. See you all next time. Bye-bye.